Hello, good evening and welcome to our last bulletin for the day. This is News at 10 on TV3 and 3FM 92.7. You can also watch TV3 on DSTV channel 279. I'm Stephen Enti. Let's begin with a summary of the day's news highlights. A new toll booth at Biposo in the western region collapses, leaving hundreds of commuters stranded. Vehicles to and from Takrady were locked up at the opposite ends of the booth. The Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, has tasked the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee to make available to the House the report of the Right to Information Bill. The committee has been working on the bill even during recess. The Speaker was addressing MPs on the first day of resumption from the almost 2 months break. The Association of LPG Retailers have declared a nationwide strike to take effect from Wednesday, May 16. This decision comes after the association gave government a one-week ultimatum to rescind its decision to implement the cylinder recirculation policy. The Attorney General has filed a writ at the Supreme Court seeking to quash a decision by the High Court in a case involving mining company Exton Cubic and the state. The High Court in February quashed a decision by the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, John Peter Amewu, to revoke the mining leases of Exton Cubic. On the international front, Liberian Vice President Joel Howard Taylor has apologized to the President George Weah live on morning television for leaving the country frequently without informing him. The New Dawn newspaper goes on to say there being speculation for some time about bad blood between the two, with some pointing to lack of trust over connection with her ex-husband, jailed former President Charles Taylor. Those were our major news highlights. Remember, we're streaming live on our Facebook page and on 3news.com. Up next is a big one. All right, let's do our first story now. The Association of LPG Retailers have declared a nationwide strike to take effect from May 16. This decision comes after the association gave government a one-week ultimatum to rescind its decision to implement the cylinder recirculation policy or face its wrath. It argued that all indigenous LPG businesses will collapse if government rolls out the policy. The LPG Marketing Companies Association, which acts as an intermediary between the bulk distribution companies and the LPG retailers, says any decision by the LPG operators to down their tools will adversely affect them. The Ghana LPG Operators Association has earlier alleged that some giant multinational companies were behind the government's implementation of the cylinder recirculation module of LPG distribution. The association has consistently maintained that the policy will cripple all local LPG businesses if government goes ahead to implement. Well, let's get onto the telephone lines. Togbi Adaku, the fifth, is president of the LPG Operators Association of Ghana, is joining me on the telephone line. So good evening, sir. So tell me what happened to your dialogue with government.
Well, we dialoguing in government, as the government asked IPA to dialogue with us to implement the policy. We're not ready to take our advice. So we withdrew a long time ago from...
Togbi, we'll be grateful if you could raise your voice a bit. I'm struggling to hear you. So you're saying that dialogue is ongoing and you've not made progress with all the discussions you've had with government on this?
Yes. We withdrew from the policy they were trying to implement because they were not listening to our advice. We are in the industry. When we withdrew, they called us again. We told them we don't like the CRM. And then they said, okay, we left. And they are not saying anything to us. And then we did the press conference and gave them 1 week to react. No reaction. I said, okay, after 1 week, if they don't react, we shall advise ourselves.
But
so we have advised ourselves now. We are going to go on. We are going to close down our services to the public.
But won't you say that will be a harsh move, especially considering that this policy has been under negotiation and discussions for quite some time, and you give government a week to withdraw that? Is it not like you're more like holding government at ransom?
We are not holding government to ransom. We are not doing that.
So what will make you change your mind? I'm asking these on the back of the fact that LPG, I mean, liquefied petroleum gas, is a very sought-after commodity for homes and drivers and all of that. So if you make any decision to withdraw services, then you're more like pushing people to explore the product through illegal means, and that could also has its own implications, don't you think?
There is no illegal means anybody can use gas or get gas. Nothing like that.
Right. So I mean, I know that you must have come to your wits' end, but do you not think that the government's decision to roll out this policy is in good faith, considering the extent of explosions recorded prior to the decision being taken by government?
Let me explain that area well. Ghana has been doing this job for 30 years now, or plus now. We recorded about 6 explosions. Nigeria started this 2 years ago and had 5 explosions. Nigeria started this thing 2 years ago and had 5 explosions. We have just got 6 explosions in 30 years. Are we not safe enough? CRM does not stop explosions.
So what you're saying is that the existing safety mechanisms are good enough to ensure safety, rather than government starting a whole new policy of recirculation?
Yes, one. And secondly, what they are doing is never fair.
How do you mean? How do you mean it's not fair? You mean you were not consulted, or you were not roped into the bulk distribution, like you were not given business options?
Not like that. First, they say they are going to classify stations to high and low risk stations, which they have done in 7 regions already, without us knowing nothing about it. And they even claim they will not give us any compensation. Of course, we have borrowed money from the banks to do all these jobs we are doing. Why not give us any money for it? And they are doing all these kind of things.
But our understanding from the government narrative suggests that government does not intend to, for example, entirely eliminate you from the distribution chain.
They are not honest.
In fact,
they are never honest. Because the classification they say they are going to do, they've done up to about 7 regions already, without us knowing it.
Right. So the question I was asking, I didn't land before you responded. I was saying
Sorry.
that government gives the impression that
Yes.
you are not completely being eliminated from the distribution chain.
It is not
that
true.
in fact the existing operators and distributors will still get their fair share of business through the distribution networks.
It's never true.
What's the true picture?
They are trying to take the job from us to give to their own their cronies and some white man.
So friends and acquaintances of the government are getting the bulk business deals.
And a white man, white man, Trafigura. Yes.
So what are you going to do about that? I mean, beyond withdrawing your service, which will hit everybody, the major intermediary, that's the LPG Marketers Association, believe your action is going to cause trouble for everyone. Are you not in touch with the Marketers Association to also come to a compromise or a consensus on this?
Yeah, with us. The marketers are with us, seriously.
I beg your pardon. You said the marketers have done what?
They are with us. They are not against us.
They are not against you. Okay, so
No.
Are they agreeing to this strike?
Of course.
All right, Tokwe Adaklu, we'll leave it here, and we do hope that you get to get a fair negotiation with your interactions with government. I'm Stephen Ante. This is News at 10. We're live from the News Hub at Adesawe Kanda. If you're listening to us on radio, this is 92.7. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, has tasked the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee to make available to the House report of the Right to Information Bill. The committee has been working on the bill even during recess. The Speaker was addressing MPs on the first day of resumption from their almost 2 months break. Evelyn Tingma reports.
The Right to Information Bill, which was sent to Parliament under a certificate of urgency during the last meeting of Parliament, was subsequently withdrawn and relayed to be taken through the normal parliamentary procedure. Whilst on recess, the Joint Committees on Communication, Constitutional and Legal Affairs have been working on it. A stakeholders forum was held to that effect, where there were complaints about too many exemptions. When members of Parliament resumed work on Tuesday, the Speaker tasked the committee to make the report available.
I will appeal to the Joint Committees on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, who've already done a great deal of work during the recess on the Right to Information Bill 2018, to make a report as quickly as possible in order for us to deliberate thereon.
The Speaker also urged MPs to desist giving out information tabled but not discussed on the floor of Parliament to the media. This was after the Majority Leader Oseiche Mensah Bonsu raised concerns.
Even though this is the forum for debate, we took them outside. That really developed some turbulence. The Speaker, if we have to work together as a collective, we must be very consultative and share information, and not take anything from this house outside to the media. It doesn't help.
Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak promised his side's cooperation. In presenting the business statement for the week, the Majority Leader said the Commission of Inquiry on the creation of new regions would brief members from the Bono Ahafo, Northern, Volta and Western regions on Friday, May 18, regarding their activities which had been brought to an end. Papers on agreements between Ghana and 4 other countries on double taxation were presented to the House by the Finance Ministry. But ranking member of the Finance Committee, Kesel Atoforsen, had concerns questioning what Ghana stands to gain from the agreements.
That what is the motivation why we are rushing to come to Parliament to get approvals for 4 different double tax agreements. We want them to estimate the fiscal cost to the state. We want them to give us evidence that Ghanaian businesses are also going to benefit from those countries, and it's not going to be done in a way for small individuals and small companies to benefit from.
He says the minority will fully scrutinize the documents and would oppose it if it appears to be in bad taste.
The Attorney General has filed a writ at the Supreme Court seeking to quash a decision by the High Court in a case involving mining company Exton Cubic and the states. The High Court in February quashed the decision by the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, John Peter Amewu, to revoke the mining licenses of Exton.
The writ filed ex-party, one-party application by the Deputy Attorney General, Godfred Dame, says the ruling by the High Court, presided over by Justice Akabuafu, could undermine efficient administration of justice. The court, presided over by Justice Kweku Akabuafo, on February 8, maintained the Minister of Land and Natural Resources, John Peter Mau, had no power to revoke the mining licenses granted to Estin Cubic to prospect for bauxite. Justice Akabuafo added the minister exceeded his powers by assuming the powers of an adjudicator. The court was of the view it is only a competent court of jurisdiction that can pass judgment on whether to revoke the licenses or otherwise. Even though the Deputy Attorney General believes the ruling is partly in the interest of government, he was quick to add that the judge went beyond his original jurisdiction. He is therefore praying the Supreme Court to intervene and reject the ruling by Justice Akabuafo. Godfrey Dame, in his statement of case, insists the High Court judge lacked jurisdiction to enforce or protect a right which Estin Cubic did not have. He said the wrongful assumption of jurisdiction of the court by the judge is also in violation of Act 703. Clause 5 of Act 703 states, subject to subsections 4 and 5, the minister on behalf of the president and on the recommendation of the commission may negotiate, grant, revoke, suspend, or renew mineral rights in accordance with this act. Based on this argument, Godfrey Dame wants the justices of the Apex Court to nullify the ruling of the High Court.
And a witness to the case of the murder of former Upper East Regional MPP chairman has told an Accra High Court the accused person, Gregory Afoko, told the police he was going to deal with the deceased if he prevented Paul Afoko, the then national chairman MPP, from performing his duties in the region. Ending his evidence-in-chief, former PRO of the Upper East Regional Police Command, DSP Thomas Agbanyo, told the court Gregory Afoko made the statement after he was arrested in Bolgatanga. Here's a report by Godfrey Tanam.
The accused person, Gregory Afoko, was arrested after the deceased Adam Mahama was alleged to have been bathed with acid. In his evidence-in-chief, former Public Relations Officer of the Upper East Regional Police Command, DSP Thomas Agbanyo, now the District Police Commander at Peve in the Volta region, told the court the police drove to Gregory Afoko's house to arrest him when the deceased mentioned his name as the attacker. DSP Thomas Agbanyo said when he was picked and on their way to arrest another suspect along the Asabgi, Gregory Afoko told the police patrol the deceased Adam Mahama had an unlicensed pistol which the police was not aware. He went ahead to say he and his group numbering 50 will do anything to stop the deceased from stopping the then chairman of the party, Paul Afoko, from doing his duties in the region. DSP Agbanyo said he asked him of the name of the group and he mentioned friends of Paul Afoko. On arrival at the residence of the second suspect along the Asabgi, the police realized he had vacated the house without any trace. Afoko is being held on charge of conspiracy to commit crime, to wit murder and murder. However, he has pleaded not guilty before the court, which is also composed of a 7-member jury. It was alleged that Afoko carried out the act with one along the Asabgi, who is on the run. A third accomplice, Musa Isa, was granted bail after the Attorney General opined that there was not enough evidence to prosecute him.
And about 80% of logs on the Ghanaian market are sourced illegally. The situation, according to Tropinbos Ghana, does not only lead to revenue loss, but also affects the smooth implementation of the voluntary partnership agreement signed with the European Union. Here's a report by Ibrahim Abubakar.
Ghana has overlawed timber trade with neighboring countries, but most of the timber products transported to these countries continue to be done through unapproved means. The situation does not only rob Ghana of income from its natural resources, but also deprive the domestic market of adequate lumber supply. It is in this regard that project supporting knowledge and regulations of overlawed timber trade and promoting domestic legal timber supply through strengthening artisanal milling in Ghana was implemented. under the project by Tropenbos Ghana with support from the Food and Agriculture Organization, 45 small-scale millers were trained on artisanal timber milling techniques. 73 personnel from the regulatory agencies were also taken through training on guidelines in overlord timber trade. At a ceremony to formally end the 15-month-long project, Director of Tropenbos Ghana, Dr. Mercy Owusu-Ansah, was hopeful the project will bring an end to illegal lumbering.
The people who are even involved are not safe. It has a detrimental effect on our environment because it results in forest degradation.
Technical advisor at the Forestry Commission, Dr. Kwachi Ameyao, raised concerns on the effects illegal logging poses to the country.
Ghana also has a vibrant overland timber trade with neighboring countries. There are often reports of leakages of timber products to these countries through unapproved means and routes. This practice has the potential of hampering the smooth implementation of Ghana's VPA with the EU and its timber legality assurance system.
Meanwhile, the Africa Regional Director of Pro Forest, Abraham Bafo, has noted Ghana lost almost all the 6.2 million hectares of forest outside the forest reserve. He blamed the situation on the lack of political will to maintain the country's forest.
Ghana had 8 million hectares of forest cover, out of which 1.8 million hectares was set aside as reserve. Of the 1.8 million hectares reserved, 0.2 million hectares have been encroached on, leaving 1.6 million hectares.
At the beginning of the last century, the government tried to set aside forest reserves. And the idea is to maintain those areas for permanent management for forestry. And that means that areas outside reserves are for other land use options, agriculture, what have you. What has happened over the last 100 years is that we've lost almost everything outside forest reserves. That's all the 6 million hectares. To the extent that even some of the reserves, the 1.8 million, some of them have been converted to cocoa farms. So we no longer have even up to 1 million hectares, which is in good forest cover.
Africa Regional Director of Pro Forest, Abraham Bafo, called for collaborative efforts to improve the situation. He indicated education is key to preserving the country's forest for economic development.
Government also seems to attach social dimension to it, livelihood. So we know it's illegal. They've done something which is illegal, but successive governments have not had the courage to say that this is illegal and don't do it. Of course, we've been saying don't do it, but they are doing it. So the challenge is, how do we get them out, if it's possible? And how do we bring back the forest? So for this TFA approach, what we are doing is to say, the small areas left outside forest reserves, which are forests, let's keep them as forest. And let's even try to improve the forest cover outside of forest reserves.
On to some other stories. The race for the national executive positions of the ruling MPP, New Patriotic Party, is taking shape. Submission of nomination forms have officially ended.
Supporters of the New Patriotic Party thronged the party headquarters to cheer the various candidates to climax the submission of their nomination forms. Several candidates eyeing key positions in the party showed up to submit their forms. Two heavyweights vying for the National Youth Organizer position, Dominic Edia and Kamaruddin Abdullahi, both submitted their forms.
I am in it already. I know the dynamics in it already. I know the technicalities there already. And look, this game is going to be won on technicalities. And I'm telling you, I've said it everywhere. Weeks to elections, we are going to separate the men from the boys. And I'm not joking.
I'm urging each and everybody to see this as a family fight. After that, we'll come back together and work together again. But I have no doubt that I started with a clean campaign and I'll continue with a clean campaign, and I am going to win, to lead the youth front of this party and make sure the NDC will remain in a position forever.
At the National Coordinator position race, 9 persons are contesting for the position.
Working for the party is my mission. Working for the party is my habit. This is the guy who sacrificed his life to make sure that NDC will not save until we take them out of power. Yes, Alice Rad, I have done it.
You can plan, but he is the best planner.
You understand? And I waited for this time, and inshallah, the time has come. Yes. And I believe this is my time.
Other key aspiring executives, including those vying for the position of General Secretary, they spoke to the news team.
We are not looking at just 8 years. We are not looking at 16 years. We are not looking at 32 years. We are looking beyond 40 years in government in order to ensure that the good work of the new patriotic party.
All the candidates believe they have what it takes to galvanize the grassroots towards achieving the new dream and to stamp the party's dominance in Ghana's political space.
Touching down with the women, making sure you build their capacity, because if you're able to build the capacity of a woman and for her to be confident and know what she is about, I tell you that is where your success story begins.
And that's how we wrap up with News at 10. Thank you very much for staying with us. On behalf of the rest of the crew, good night. There is more news at 3news.com.